We're going to make a quick tutorial on how to create a simple barrel fire. So, first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to show you the barrel I found. I searched for burn metal barrel, and then I put in this search modifier minus stock, and what that does is it gets rid of all those watermarked stock photos. It subtracts anything with the word stock from the image search. So anyway, I found this barrel, which I like. I've already downloaded it. Then I did a search for Apocalypse Empty City. I found this little alleyway that I like. It's got some water down here, which is going to allow us to practice making a reflection, which I kind of like. So let's get started. I'm over in Final Cut. One more thing I'll point out, actually, before I hop back over, is that there's a link to Action Essentials effects, and in here there's a folder called Fire. I've grabbed a couple of pieces of fire from here. One of them is Windy Torch, I believe Windy Torch 2, so I can play that for you just so you can see. Here we go. That'll be the fire inside the barrel. Actually, I think I used Windy Torch 1. Anyway, you'll pick what you like. And then also under the smoke assets, so there's a folder called Smoke in Action Essentials. And I believe I chose Puffy Smoke 1, which is this file right here. And that'll just add a little bit of smoke coming out of my barrel. So let's get over to Final Cut. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring in the alleyway. So I'll bring in back alley first. Now when this comes in, you'll notice it's a little bit too small. There's some edges here, so I'm just going to my transform, and I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit until it's filled the whole screen. And then I'm just going to take my y-axis and slide this image up as far as I can while keeping the whole screen filled. Alright, so next let's get our barrel going. So I'm going to bring in my barrel, drag and drop it on top of here, and right away you're going to see we have got some masking work to do. So I'm going to go over here to my effects window, and I'm going to go to masks, draw mask, and I'm going to drop that on my barrel. And now it's asking me to create a control point. I'm just going to zoom into 150% while I'm working here, and I'll start on an edge. So we'll start here, come into the barrel's edge, come up to here. I'll come out and create just a little triangle dent for that rib there. So another triangle dent for that rib. Up to my rim, come out just a little bit on that, and now I'll do my first curve. So I'm going to click here and drag outward until that line seems to match the curve of the barrel. Then my next point will be right here on the furthest point of the curve. That worked out pretty well. I may modify this keyframe just a little bit. There we go. So now we'll just sort of finish out our barrel here. This is dented down here pretty good, so I think I'm going to have to chop into it and come down to the bottom edge, create curve point here, and click off to my final. And I think I'm going to have to change that final point to smooth. I'll right click this and choose brake handle, put this handle going straight up, but this one here I'm going to pull down a little bit for my bend. And we'll just sort of fix this bend a little bit. So we notice we've got some shrubs, some weeds down here that doesn't really match over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those last 3 points, I'm going to hold shift, take these 3 points, and I'm just going to slide them up a little bit. And we're just going to sort of cut our barrel off short, getting rid of that problem. So I may have to adjust a couple keyframes. So now we have a really, really basic mask going on our barrel here. We're just going to fine tune it a little bit. So I'm going to click some of these points and drag them in to try to get rid of any additional background that may be showing up in my mask. I'm going to add an additional point here maybe. Here this needs to get cleaned up a little bit, so bring this point in and this point in. Okay, so I'm going to go to my fall off, and I'm going to drag that up to 100%. That's going to get rid of some of my edging as well. So let's go back here to choose fit, and now we're going to shrink this barrel and place it. So Shift T will get me my transform scales, my transform controls, so I can scale. Grab a corner, I'm going to drag down, and I'm going to bring this barrel, I'm going to set it somewhere right around here on the tile section of the road here. Shrink it down a little bit more. That looks pretty good to me. I think I like it. I'm going to hit done. Now, I need to do a little bit of a color match. So if you look, our barrel doesn't quite have as high of contrast as our background image does. So I'm going to drop the shadows a little bit. That helps quite a bit right there. Maybe drop the midtones, highlights just a tad. feels a little bit more like our barrel belongs now. So then, down here under video effects, I'm going to search for shadow. And I'm only in blur, so I'm going to go back to all. Here's my drop shadow. I'm going to add that. I'm going to go over here, choose drop shadow so I can get my transform controls. And I'm going to lay this down like this, shrink it up, but try to sort of match the perspective of the road here in my image, and just place this shadow underneath the barrel a little bit, which just helps make that barrel look like it's actually in our scene. So if I were to toggle that shadow off, you'll see it sort of looks like our barrel's just floating. This helps make it feel like it's really belongs in the image a little bit. So I'm just going to widen that back up just a little bit. Put that there. It's fine by me. All right. So now, in order to put fire in this barrel, we need a clear foreground and a background. And what I'm talking about is the opening of the barrel. So let's zoom in again. I'm going to go into about, 400%. Grab this little icon here to get us over here. All right, so to put fire in here, this rim here would be the foreground of my barrel, and this would be the background. So the fire needs to be in front of this back section right here, but behind everything else. So we're going to have to duplicate this barrel in order to pull this off. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag up, and that will create a duplicate copy. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to masks and clear out our shadow search, and I'm going to put another draw mask on the foreground layer, which is the top layer, and basically I'm just going to cut this out. To show you what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and hide the bottom. That way it makes more sense. So let's get to it. Click on the top, click on my new draw mask. It's going to ask for me to make points. So I will make a point here. Come along to the inside rim here. Now I can be a little bit sloppy and draw outside of the lines because we already have a mask which is going to preserve when we drew this one, so we don't have to worry about the background of the original image, is basically what I'm saying. So all I'm doing right here is I don't want any of that lip in because that would be the foreground. I'm just creating this little bit of the barrel here, which is the background, okay? So now if I re-show this, actually this is sort of the opposite of what I want to do. So I'm going to go up here on the mask that I just drew, and I'm going to hit invert. So now what I have is I have a foreground of the barrel, but it's missing the back side of the barrel. But my original layer has the back side of the barrel. So when I bring that back into the picture, poof, there it is, okay? Now I don't want any drop shadow on this new layer, so I'm going to just uncheck the drop shadow on my background layer, my top layer. I'm sorry, that's actually my foreground. Again, this is just the front part of the barrel, and then this layer has the whole barrel, including the background. So there we go. I'm going to zoom back out. We'll go over here to our view, zoom, and click fit, and we'll just click on the backdrop here. Here's what our project looks like. Now, when we bring our fire in, we need to put our fire between these two layers. So here we go. I've downloaded a couple fire effects, which I said I would be using. We'll start with this one because it's a little bit harder to do because it's wide and our barrel is not wide. So I just want to show you how to sort of force that to fit. So again, we're going to put that between the two layers. And I'm just going to shrink my effects panel over a little bit. Get that out of the way. And here, I'm just going to trim this down so it matches the rest of our project. No need for that to be longer. So here we've got a fire just sort of randomly burning on the ground. That is not what we want. So I'm going to Shift T, and I'm going to transform, move this over here. Now you can see what our foreground and background is doing. But this fire is way too big. So we're going to shrink this down. And I don't usually recommend doing this, but fire it'll sort of work. So I'm actually going to vertically squish this fire a little bit and shrink it down more and stick it way down here in the barrel. Now I've got some little issues going on down here, which we'll take care of with a mask. So I'll say done. I'm going to preview this fire. It looks pretty good. Right here there's a frame where it sneaks off to the side, but again, don't worry about that. I'm going to put this shrunk just a little bit more. Now that's okay. All right, so we'll use a mask to get rid of this little bit down here, and then we should be fine. So I'll go back to masks, draw mask. I'm going to put that on the fire. Say done up here with my transform. And now let's zoom back in a little bit so we can see what we're doing. This time my mask, it's just going to come along this front curvature of the barrel like this. And out here it doesn't matter so much, so we're just going to as long as it's heading upward, above and beyond where that fire would reach, we'll come back into the corner of our barrel and connect back in. And we're going to go ahead and right click and make that smooth and just drag this out so it follows that curve. Okay. So now what that's done is it's just eliminated that little bit of fire that was sticking out down here. So if I hide the draw mask, you'll see that fire sticking out. And if any point this fire would have gotten wider in the asset and flared out here, it's just cutting that off so it looks like it's only in the barrel. So let's go back, set this to fit, and let's just give it a quick watch. So now we have some fire inside the barrel. I'm going to go ahead and add a second fire. I'm going to use this torch and put it, again, sandwiched between the two barrel assets. And then I will transform, Shift T, shrink this fire down quite a bit, place it inside my barrel, give it a watch. It looks like a pretty good barrel fire we've got going. I don't see anything jumping out of the edges. So I think we're good to go with that. So I'll pause, click done. And now I'm going to use that puffy smoke. I'm going to put that between these two fire assets. Now this file, for some reason, it seems very slow motion to me, this smoke rising. So I'm going to go ahead, Command R to retime it, and just speed this file up and trim it in place. So now the smoke's coming out a little faster. It looks a little more aggressive to match the fire we have. So we'll Shift T to transform. We're going to shrink this way down, place it generally over the barrel. I'm actually going to warp it vertically just a little bit. Click done. Now, this pre-compositing of this smoke, you can see there's sort of a black edging around it, which I don't like. So we're going to click on this, and we're going to go to blend mode, and we're going to set that to screen. And screen blend mode basically gets rid of dark things. It makes anything that's dark see-through. So you'll see now that smoke looks a lot more natural. Here's one issue. You can see the top where the smoke left the boundaries of the original video clip. So we're going to fix that up with a graduated mask. I'm going to dump that mask on here, and we get these 2 points. We actually need to sort of reverse these points. So I'll take the top point and drag it to the bottom, and then drag that bottom point and bring it up to the top. And what that's going to do is it's basically just going to fade out, feather out that smoke so that we never see the top edge. So there is still some subtle smoke coming out of there, but it disappears before it ever would get to the top edge. And just again, I'm going to uncheck that just to show you what that did. If we didn't have that in place, you would see the smoke would come up here and sort of get cropped off at some point right there. Now you see the cropping really bad. So that graduated mask, that just gets rid of that cropping issue that we're having. Okay, so that's the basics of creating fire in the barrel. Now we just got to sell it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a compound clip of these the fire and smoke assets. So I'm going to right click, new compound clip. I selected just those 3 files first. I'll just call this fire. So now I'm going to actually duplicate that. So I'm going to hold Option, and I'm going to drag this up here, and we'll get a copy of it on top of everything. Now this is going to look awful, but that's fine. Shift T, transform, and this time we're going to flip this. We're going to drag the top down until the fire is now upside down. And then we're going to place it on this water. And I'm going to line it up right in front of that barrel. I'm actually going to rotate it a little bit, put it here so it looks like a reflection coming out away from us. I'll say done. We're going to zoom in again, maybe 400% while we draw our mask. Let's look at this puddle close up. And now I'm going to take a mask. I'm going to put it on here. And I'm just going to follow the edges of this mud puddle, roughly. Now there's a little island of dirt here that it wouldn't show a reflection of, so I'm just going to sort of cut along that island as I go and close my mask. Now this needs a little more tweaking. Let's look at that original island, see how it played out originally. Just sort of try to follow those lines. Okay. So our reflection is way too strong, so we're going to fix that now. But first, let's zoom out so we can see what's going on. Let's go back to fit here. Let's click play, and you see we've got some fire down there reflecting in the water. So what I'm going to do with that fire up here is I'm going to add a little bit of blur to it. So I'm going to go over to blur in my effects, Gaussian blur, add that here. I'm going to make sure that Gaussian blur is above my mask so that it's being cut off, and I'm going to turn it way down. So maybe it's only affecting it. I've got a value of just below 3. Then I'm just going to come down here to my mask and go to fill opacity. And we're just going to drop this down a little bit too to sort of dull that fire just a little bit. And here's the effect we've got going. That looks pretty good. So now, sort of the last step to pull everything together and make it really feel like this is all, everything belongs together, is we're going to do a color grade over everything. This can be done a couple different ways. The easiest, without a plugin, is I'm going to select everything, new compound clip. I'm just going to call it, barrel burn. And now we're just going to come over to our effects. We're going to go to looks and find something that looks nice. I like combat. We'll add combat on. And what this is going to do, it's just going to put a look on everything. The barrel, the fire, the smoke, a color look onto everything. So I'll turn this down just a little bit. And now it really just makes it feel like everything sort of belongs together a little bit more. Now lastly, I'm just going to add a little bit of camera shake. So I'll type in handheld, or just hand, and I get this handheld effect. I'll drop this on. Now by default, this is way too much. Let me just show you. It's like, looks awful. So I'm going to drag this shakiness all the way down to maybe just like, I don't know, somewhere around 1.5. Maybe a little bit more than that. I'm going to turn down my distance as well. So I'm going to maybe take it up to 3. There we go. It's almost difficult to even see that it's moving, but it is moving just a little bit, which just adds a little bit of natural breath into this. Now, if I really wanted to dig deeper into this tutorial, which I'm not going to do at this moment, but we could use a Luma Keyer to cut out this sky and add in another sky off of, steal a video off of YouTube of just some clouds slowly moving across and sort of do a sky replacement. That could be done with a combination of a chroma keyer for the blue areas of the sky and a Luma Keyer for all of the white clouds. But for this tutorial, we're just going to call this done. This is our final look. So this is how to basically create a digital barrel fire. Let's just add in some sounds. So I've searched for fire on my Finder in my computer. Final Cut comes with a bunch of sound effects. And I've chosen this Mac, and here we have our search returns. I like Fire 2. Have a listen. So I'll just grab that sound effect, and we'll drop it below our video clip. And then we will trim it to match. Turn it down a little bit as the fire is not quite right in our face like that. Now we'll just search for, I'm just going to type in city. That works for me. I'll just choose city 1, drop it in here. This time I'll use the razor blade to trim it off. And I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. A bit. -15. I'm going to turn it down even more than that. Let's try like 26. And there we go. Now we have some ambience as well as the sound of our fire.